But the Cincinnati Bengals, if you go line by line, it comes back to the same question Tom asked all those years ago. Are the Cincinnati Bengals better today than they were last year?
I would say that question is the foundation of this show. It's certainly the crux of most conversations in these months, and I don't know how confident I am in that.
You're not confident in it. We were talking about yesterday what we were going to talk about today. So if you go by position right now, and I'll kind of let Casey and Jacob take the reins here. If we go by position, how many of these positional groups are going to improve, are going to take that next step after this past offseason, after what we saw last year? Can the wide receiving room get any better than it already is? Probably not. I would say it's as good as it can possibly be.
In the world.
Yeah. The quarterback. I think the quarterback position, we're fine.
Now, that's where I disagree, but it's not where I wanted to go first.
Okay. Then you take it.
Okay.
You take it.
I think last night a window was opened into something that we really want to happen since the draft. The Bengals did not draft a safety, did not address defensive back in the draft whatsoever. And then this morning, late last night, they restructured Geno Stone's contract to free up almost $2 million in cap space, about $1.5 million in cap space, while also giving him more guaranteed money to make sure he's on the contract or on the roster for this upcoming season. A lot of people thought Geno Stone was potentially a cut. A lot of people have been saying that this move now locks in the Bengals' safety room. I don't agree with either. I think Geno Stone is certainly on the Bengals for the near future, but I think this opens up a window for the Bengals to add at safety. And I think the most likely addition isn't Justin Simmons, who said he wants to come play in Cincinnati. I think that's a little rich for Mike Brown and the Bengals' liking, but I think who the Bengals should go after is someone that Casey's actually been saying we should go after for a few months now.
Yeah.
Yeah, my ideal target was Julian Blackmon. I had him mocked to the Bengals, way before free agency even started. I thought the guy was a good fit overall. He can play multiple different roles as a safety. He can play as your box safety, your strong safety. He can play as your free safety. He's young. He's 26 years old. And he just recently came off of a contract that was around $3.7 million. So if you were to give him that exact same contract, that's about the same amount of money you just freed up between two guys. So it makes sense in the sense that he can come in and provide you good depth. He can compete for a starting role. He's been a starter for a few years now. I think right now the biggest thing for the Bengals is to find a guy that can provide depth, because there's not a lot of depth right now. And reliable depth.
Maybe Geno Stone's the depth.
Yeah, maybe Geno Stone is the depth.
In this case, I think I'm very confident in a Julian Blackmon and Jordan Battle safety room, with Geno Stone back more to that role he's comfortable with from Baltimore, where he can just play free safety and roam.
Yeah, and to go back to my earlier point about he can play multiple different things, I think the main role that he fits well in is that box safety role. He was very, very good in 2023 with the Colts, playing a lot inside the box. He only missed 7% of his tackles, if I'm reading this right. Most average safeties are missing about 12 to 15%. So he was doing really well in that box safety type role. It was one of his better cover years as well. Last season, he was asked to play a lot of that deep safety role, and that kind of took a step back in his production, but he was still decent. He was better than Geno Stone was last season. So I think that the player itself makes sense. I do question why he's still out on the open market. I think that there's potentially some injury history there. I was just trying to look it up. It could just be money. But
which case it's a little easier to satisfy money requests as you get later and later into free agency and no teams are calling.
That's right. And on top of that, Bengals have plenty of that said money.
Exactly.
So I think that it makes a lot of sense now.
And it would be a one-year deal investment to win now on this team. So it's not something that the Bengals would necessarily be making some kind of investment with guaranteed money into the future. So I don't think it would even be against their norms, if you will, for anything but where it happens on the calendar, right?
Right. This would definitely not be a long-term deal. This would just be the 1 year. And, like I said, the money they just freed up was the exact same money that he made last season. So if he was going to accept anything that he potentially took last season. It makes a lot of sense for him to do it now. Just looking at potential reasons why he's not been signed is that he did have a shoulder injury throughout 2024, which could also explain a little bit of the reason why he didn't play as well last season. He was hurt, and so he's probably still recovering from his torn right labrum, is what it says here. So there's a chance that that's a reason why he's not been signed, but it looks like to me right here that he would be ready midway through camp. So
labrum injury, what we were worried about with Jahad Campbell going through the draft. So something I would assume Bengals and their front office have become familiar with through this process, and we'll certainly be more comfortable bringing someone in free agency than using a first-round pick with those question marks.
Yeah, and if that's not the option, like that's the guy that I would prefer just because of the versatility. I like Justin Simmons too.
I would love Justin Simmons.
I don't think that's a completely out of question to get a Justin Simmons at 32 years old. You're bouncing from team to team now at this point. You're not expecting to get a large amount of money.
You only want to play for a contender, which certainly helps a team like the Bengals that might not meet the market value for a player like that.
Yeah, and there's still chances for them to release a lot of cap space with Cordell Wilson.
That was my next question.
And Jermaine Pratt. So there's opportunity for them to create more cap space if that number is too far out of reach. So I don't mind Justin Simmons. The only thing I have against him right now is he had a really bad season last year.
Yes.
I mean, he missed 20% of his tackles. I mean, it's a veteran guy in the locker room, but just with his overall performance last season, I don't feel as comfortable with that. At least you have a good mind in the locker room, but to me, that's like a Von Bell signing, which you're probably expecting a little more than Von Bell at this point. And the Bengals like going young, so I don't know. I like both those guys. And there's also other opportunities in the secondary too, like Asante Samuel Jr., I think.
I have no interest in adding a corner.
Yeah, but there's other options that I think make sense for the Bengals. Did you have any potential guys besides those?
No, those are the only two safeties I would have any interest in adding, and certainly have zero desire to add a corner, because I think our corner room is my answer for the position group I'm most confident in taking the biggest step from last year. Cam Taylor-Britt, I am confident in marking that off as an outlier of the season last year. I think that was, it was certainly terrible, and it was worse than any one of us could have expected. But going into that season, we thought he was going to be pushing Pro Bowl, All-Pro, Corner 1 status. And I don't know that he's going to get back there, but I certainly think he's going to be serviceable. I mean, it would be ridiculous for him to fall off again to an unserviceable level. So I expect Cam Taylor-Britt to take a pretty big jump this year, at least back to the form we saw 2 years ago, if not taking that step we expected him to take last year. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that Dax Hill and DJ Turner suffered season-ending injuries right when they started getting into the swing of things. Dax Hill struggled early in the year, sure. By week 4, week 5, he was lights out, playing probably the best defensive player on that team at that point, other than Trey Hendrickson, who obviously was a force all year long. And then he gets hurt, tears his ACL, his first year playing outside corner, and they have enough faith in him this year to pick up his fifth-year option.
Yeah.
I think that tells you a lot about what that building thinks about Dax Hill, and I think we should think very similarly about Dax Hill. I think he's going to be a lockdown corner. I think he's going to be a great, great player this year. And then Josh Newton on the inside, it's not going to be Mike Hilton, but I think he might be a better tackler than Mike Hilton and a cover guy right now. Mike Hilton over the last couple of years has been taken off the field in coverage snaps because he was older, he was slower, still that elite blitzer, still that elite guy off the edge, still great in the flats. But I think Josh Newton's going to be much more versatile in that slot role, be able to stay on the field more, not have to rotate a lot of guys. I personally would probably play Dax there. It's where he was most comfortable at Michigan, where he played the most snaps. But Josh Newton, I think, can be a really exciting player in the slot as well, even though I know Bengals fans everywhere will miss Mike Hilton.
I loved Mike Hilton.
One of my favorite free agency signings of all time.
Has he been picked up by anybody?
Not that I don't believe so.
Which that maybe that is an option for the Bengals too.
It would be
getting Mike Hilton. I don't know what the slot corner room looks like at the moment besides Newton, and then you're talking about like Dax Hill maybe playing there. Even DJ Turner could probably play there, but you're expecting them to have significant snaps, starting for you. So I don't know. I think maybe he could make a return for a cheap deal. Regardless, I think the Bengals should address secondary in some capacity.
Yeah.
They got to get depth there because one guy goes down, we see what happens. Well, all last season was a disaster for the most part. So depth there is very vital for this team's success moving forward. The good thing about the Bengals right now is that we are seeing them making conscious effort to create cap space. It's not for nothing. Like, they're not going to just pocket that money and move forward. I think they're either A, trying to get a deal done with Trey, and they're trying to get as much money as possible for him, or B, they're trying to bring in depth to this team and make it better. And that's really what we want them to do, is to continue to maximize their efforts in making this team better every single day, year in and year out, and not just, sit on their hands when they have all this cap space to work with. So it's good to see them making that conscious effort to do that.
Do you think more money's coming?
Yeah, I mean, with Pratt, and I think Volson
you can't not restructure Volson.
Yeah, Volson's making like 3.8, and I just can't imagine him not being your starting guard, making that much. Like, he would be paid the most out of all of our guards right now on the roster. He'd be making the most, and you're going to ask him to sit the bench? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think so, buddy. So I think that there's a good chance that he also has some sort of deal restructured. Right now, the trend has been, let's give you more guaranteed money up front, and that allows those players to stay on the team while taking pay cuts. So all for that if they have the ability to do so. I'm also not ruling out the idea that Pratt does the same thing either. There's a reason why they haven't cut him yet. Right. I don't know why.
Because there's zero reason to trade him now.
Yeah, I don't think any team will trade for him at this point. So there's got to be something behind the scenes, just looking at it like from a top view perspective here, that the timing of it doesn't make a lot of sense. There's probably something behind the scenes of them negotiating something with him, whether that's a pay cut or, I don't know, maybe they're going to wait to the last minute to cut him. That'd be kind of crappy for both sides. Yeah. But again, Bengals making conscious efforts to continue to make cap space. I think that's a good sign.
Why Cordell Volson jumps from that $1.1 million to that $3.8 million number this year, which is such a significant jump, is because he hit his proven performance accelerator to the second tier. He started so many games for us as a late-round pick that he's viewed in the eyes of the collective bargaining agreement and the PA as an unequivocal hit in the draft, which gives him more money in this last year of his rookie contract. Now, I will say, well, a lot of people say, well, he's not going to restructure that. He earned that bonus. Jerome Ford earned a very similar bonus in Cleveland, and I think is in a very similar boat to Cordell Volson. What did the Browns do in this draft with Nick Chubb on the way out? They drafted two running backs. They drafted Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State and Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. With Alex Kappa on the way out of Cincinnati, what did the Bengals do? They draft Jalen Rivers from Miami. They draft Dylan Fairchild from Georgia. These guys know their spots aren't safe. So Jerome Ford reset his contract for a fully guaranteed 1.75 instead of that 3.4 number, and gives himself a much better chance to make the 53-man roster. I would expect something very similar, if not the exact same, for Cordell Volson. Otherwise, he's going to get cut. Because there's no way you can hold Cordell Volson for $3.8 million this year. No way.
Yeah, no way. I agree with you 100%. Which, by the way, I do think that the guard position gets better. I know we're kind of bouncing a little bit all over the place here in terms of the segment here, but I do think the guards are also going to get better. I mean, they have the two worst guards in all of football. You can't get much worse. I think that they're going to be at least marginally better. I do think Fairchild can be a serviceable guard. I'm hoping a top 32 guard at least. He doesn't need to be all world class. He just needs to be one of the best.
We weren't top 60 last year, so yeah. I'll take any marginal improvement on that thing.
Yeah. So I think that that is a position group that we can count on to get a little better, just because of how bad it was last season. I also think too, like D-line, regardless how you feel about Shamar Stewart, just adding more depth there too, I think is just a little marginal improvement. I don't think that they're like world-class beaters or anything, but...
Well, and even if you're not the biggest RAS score guy in the world, going from Sam Hubbard, who had mystery injuries every game and could barely get off the line, to a guy that led Texas A&M in pressures last year and is a freak athlete, even if they're going to give you the same sack production, we can't act like it's not going to be more beneficial to have the freak athlete out there. So it's going to help the floor of this team a ton. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from looking at this roster as we move away from the draft is the floor of this team has been raised significantly if they can stay healthy. And I think that's a big thing. I think that's a really, really big thing. I do see some questions in the chat going back to the offensive line about whether or not it's time to move off of Ted Karras at center. I know there's a lot of Matt Lee fans. Casey and I, certainly two of them. I do think that would be one of the biggest mistakes the Bengals could ever make, moving Ted Karras off of center. We've seen Joe Burrow in his career have nothing but question marks in Cincinnati. Play callers change twice. His O-line changes all the time with injuries. There's been one sure thing since that Super Bowl run, and it's been Ted Karras at center. He's the only guy other than Joe Burrow that's touched the ball every play since that Super Bowl run. I'm not changing that when I don't have faith in the two spots next to him. Now, if you think Ted Karras is a better guard than Dylan Fairchild, I don't know that I care. Because I think his communication at center and snapping the ball is so crucial to this offensive line, especially with new guards, that I'm not willing to move him further away from the other new guard.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I don't like the idea of moving Ted Karras now. I mean, it maybe made a little more sense last year.
When you are in dire straits at the guard position, I think you have that conversation. But if it didn't happen last year, it should never happen.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I don't think that there's any reason to move him. You're injecting two new starters on the offensive line right by him, and he's been on this offensive line as the captain of the offensive line for years now. So he knows the scheme in and out. He's going to get those guys right. I'm not moving Ted Karras whatsoever. I do think that there's an opportunity for Matt Lee to start somewhere on the line. He's an athlete.
I would love it.
He's one of the most athletic guys we have on the offensive line. So I hope he competes. I think that he's capable of competing for a guard spot. I think he might be a tad bit undersized, but we'll just have to wait and see what all shakes out here because we've got plenty of options. I don't think we had a lot of options last year. We have plenty of options this year to compete. Let's just hope that one of them stands out from the rest of the crowd here. Of course, besides Fairchild here, I'm talking about your Cody Fords, your Patrick Lucas or Lucas Patrick.
Lucas Patrick.
One of those guys to stand out here. But yeah, I mean, I think offensive line should definitely be improved moving forward. Other than that,
running back for sure.
Yeah, that's the last thing I was going to say is running back is the only other, the one that I think has actually made a step forward.
Significant jump
step forward.
In my eyes.
Because if Moss does stay healthy, it's the same floor, if not better, because Chase Brown's going to get better too, right?
It's not Khalil Herbert.
It's not Khalil Herbert, and he's not going to fumble the snap right away.
We all know Joe fumbled that.
That was Joe.
We all know they credited that fumble to Joe.
That was Joe's fault.
That was definitely Joe's fault. And then Taj Brooks, I have very high hopes for him.
Couldn't love him more.
Love Samaje Perine as your third down back, your blocking running back. I love that. They've got a lot of options there at running back that I feel very comfortable with. If someone were to have an injury, I like the guys in that room right now more than I ever have.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it as the last piece of this segment. What if Jermaine Burton's really good this year, guys?
No,
Oh,
stop it.
man.
Stop it. That was a silly
The
thing.
bar is so low.
Well, yeah, because he's not going to play.
But what if he did
They
figure
posted
it out?
3 pictures of him in phase 1 on social media.
No.
What if he did figure it out?
That's what I
though?
mean. This is a guy we were talking about last year as a first-round talent that we were all very excited to be the third wide receiver on this team. I still think most people would agree that his ceiling is higher than Andre Oshavas or Charlie Jones.
Yeah, like right now, I'm down like negative 85%.
Yeah, but I'm holding.
I'm holding. I got diamond hands here. Yeah, I'm holding. And
Jermaine Burton.
Absolutely.
Look out.
Watch out.
Yikes.
DB Assassin.
Yikes.